The CBC says I'm radicalizing young men, but can't name any radical views I supposedly promote. They merely want to equate conservatism with extremism in order to silence those who dissent from leftist orthodoxy.
What they want to say here, of course, is that I'm alt-right. The problem is that people in the media, including The Economist, have attempted to call me alt-right before.
Bro, why is this motherfucker got a stubble, dude? What's going on? He's got a 5 o'clock shadow and shit? What's that about? Huh? What's happening over there?
And we have then threatened them with legal action because the alt-right hates my guts, and I've ripped the alt-right routinely, doing full speeches about the alt-right, and so they've had to retract such statements. So instead, they say, well, I call myself conservative, but you know what they would call me? They would call me an extremist, which goes to show you that if they call me an extremist, you're definitely an extremist as well. Though Shapiro describes himself as a conservative political commentator, his views are controversial. Some are outright discriminatory. Wow, I didn't know that. What are my discriminatory views? It seems to me that I've always been of the viewpoint.
Wait, what? Wow, what are some of my discriminatory views? I don't know. Literally every phobia on the planet, dude. That's crazy. It is pretty fucking wild that he just could still say like, man, I don't have any phobias.
That, for example, people should be treated as individuals, not based on their race or their religion. I thought that was like basic to my worldview, actually. But it turns out, according to the CBC, that some of my views are outright discriminatory. He suggested, for example, that transgender people suffer from a mental disorder. Oh, you mean me and the American Psychiatric Association? Like in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5, it literally labels gender dysphoria a mental disorder.
Bro, there's a difference between you routinely saying it's mental illness and someone adequately talking about gender dysphoria. What the fuck?
Because it used to be called gender identity disorder. You mean that? So it's now discriminatory to say that people who have gender dysphoria, in fact, suffer from a mental disorder.
Medicine is going so woke. Back in the day, you could call people insane terms, and you can't do that anymore. It's because doctors have gone woke. Go woke, get broke.
Which they clearly do, since it is labeled as such in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual as politicized and left-wing as the DSM is. But apparently that's discriminatory, guys. We have to pretend that men who say they are women are actually suffering from some sort of mind-body misalignment. And the problem is with their body. So if we just chop off some body parts, then magically they're a woman because their brain is the brain of a woman. Now, you might have to have a mental disorder to believe that, but that's actually not science. But if I say that, it's apparently discriminatory.
No, it is literally science. You're being anti-science. You just lied about what the DSM-5 designates gender dysphoria as. It's unironically the anti-science position. To be anti-trans is to be anti-science. Kind of weird, dude.
See, Shapiro has a combined 9.4 million subscribers and followers on YouTube and Twitter, many of whom are young people. No, not the youths, not the youths, like Brown was when he got pushed in Shapiro's direction. Well, Shapiro is not affiliated with any hate group. Experts, the ever-present experts in media, gender studies, and radicalization of young men say the commentator's content is prevalent in online extremist communities. So they're saying openly, there's no evidence that I'm affiliated with a hate group because I'm not affiliated with a hate group, and they have no evidence of it because it doesn't exist. But they do have experts. They have met, and who are these experts? Who are these massively influential, important, and very expert experts? Who are they? They are experts in media. Wow. How do you even get that hat?
That's crazy that, like, you know, people who are doing media analysis, which Ben Shapiro is a part of, are experts in media. I mean, to be fair, like, fuck that. That's a bullshit designation. I mean, okay. A lot of these people are fucking, you know, they're losers, they're ridiculous, but ultimately, like, you know, so was Ben Shapiro.
How do you earn the expert in media hat? Do you go to like a journalisming program at a top university taught by other professors who have failed out of the media because they weren't able to hold a job, and now they're academics, and all they do all day long is talk about the media? But they don't actually have an audience like we do here on this show. They just sit at an Ivy League boardroom and discuss their expertise in front of students. Is that what they do?
Literally went to Harvard, by the way. The reason why he malfunctioned there, I think, is because, you know, he like kind of recognized he caught himself.
This is how you criminalize speech. The way that you criminalize speech is you say speech is harmful because if my feelings are hurt, you have harmed me. You have aggressed against me, and thus you must be shut down. I mean, it's the equivalent of me like hitting you with a baseball bat or something. The exposure to controversial and increasingly harmful views about masculinity, the objectification of women, and the LGBT community has these same experts raising concern about how extremist far-right groups are using TikTok, YouTube, and other social media apps in a drip campaign to slowly radicalize vulnerable teens and young men. Ooh. Okay, so I just have a couple of questions about that particular paragraph. They say the exposure to controversial views about what are my controversial views about masculinity?
I mean, to be fair, can't help but laugh anytime Ben talks about masculinity, bro. Come on. Even him talking about this right now with that fucking beard. Jesus Christ. If you look like a femboy, even with the fucking stubble that you barely were able to grow, and you sound that way, don't fucking turn around and be like, gender norms are actually binary, and that's that. Come on, brother.
I don't think that's particularly that men should finish high school, get a job, get married, and take care of their kids without abandoning them. Is that the controversial view about masculinity? Is the controversial view about masculinity that men should be responsible husbands and fathers? What's controversial? If that's controversial, it's just because society is insane, not because what I'm saying is controversial. The objectification of women. That's a new one. I hadn't heard that one before. I've been an outspoken anti-porn advocate since I was like 16 years old. I was an advocate and still am for virginity of both sexes until marriage. So I'm gonna need some evidence on the objectification of women front. By objectification of women, do you mean that I think that there are actual standards of beauty and that there are many people in popular culture who we have been told?
Yes. No, like literally, yeah. You will never, ever cut a video being like, this man is ugly. He needs to be hotter. Objectively speaking, in the Western world, we have beauty standards. And it's chiseled jawlines of men. I want to see pectorals glistening in the sun. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason. By the way, that would be objectifying too.
Are supposed to be seen as beautiful who are not objectively beautiful. Obviously, that's true. Obviously, that's true. If you polled men on whether Lizzo is beautiful, and I say Lizzo is not, by any classical definition, a beautiful person, that does not mean that that is objectification of women. That just means that there is a standard called beauty, and it has meaning and content. Okay, that's not a particular controversial view, unless, again, you're an insane person. But they say that I have increasingly harmful views about LGBT community. Now, I assume that what they mean by this is that I say, you know, as most societies have said for literally all human history, that the foundation of a successful society is man, woman, child, that heterosexual sex within marriage is the morally preferable form of sex in society, that all...
What? Okay, well, that's just straight up hateful. Yeah. Bro, this is always so funny because motherfuckers would just like be like, I can't believe this article called me out. Here's why everything they're saying is true. Bro, you didn't have to say it out loud immediately for everyone with like 3.5 fucking brain cells to recognize that that's what's going on.
All of human progeneration is rooted in it, that all of societal stability is founded upon it, and that when you get rid of the standard, that there is, in fact, a moral superiority to heterosexual sex within the confines of marriage. When you get rid of that, you end up destabilizing both reproduction and society itself. Again, this is basic natural law kind of stuff. Seems to be backed by a fair bit of evolutionary biology as well. This is not saying that the government should regulate the type of sex that people can have in the privacy of their own bedroom. It is to say that pretending that there is no level of moral superiority to your sex life is very, very silly when we apply moral superiority and inferiority scales to literally everything else you do, from the food that you eat to the clothes that you wear. So apparently that's very controversial as well. And that's really bad.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is incredibly controversial to say being homosexual is unnatural. Bro, have you seen nature? Nature is gay as fuck. Nature is trans as fuck. Like, there is no trans, there's no gay, there's nothing in nature. It's just like crazy. This notion that like, oh man, in its natural state is in a heterosexual relationship is such a funny fucking thing to say.
The goal of the CBC piece, of course, is to get my content banned on social media. And so what they have to do here is that they can't actually say what about my views is so terrible. So instead what they do is they say, well, you know, young people watch my stuff, and then they increasingly watch other people's stuff. And those other people's stuff is really bad. And then even worse stuff. Now, again, they'll never use this argument about, for example, marijuana and the fact that virtually everyone who does hard drugs originally started with marijuana. That argument was ruled out of bounds long ago, and we have to pretend now, by the way, that marijuana is not addictive. Marijuana is, in fact, addictive by...
I mean, virtually everyone that's ever done hard drugs has also drinked alcohol. Drank. Man, I said drinked. My brain is not all right.
By all available data. We have to pretend all that stuff, but we're not allowed to make that argument with regard to a slippery slope on drugs. We're also not allowed to make the argument with regard to a slippery slope on pornography. If we say that people access porn and a subsection of the people who access that porn are going to access more and more extreme versions of porn up to and including violent porn, and that has an effect on people.
Wait, but he has made that argument. This entire argument is literally like I want to say this about porn, but they're saying this about right-wing radicalizing content.
Souls, and it makes them less sensitive toward women. You're not supposed to say that either. That's really bad. So again, slippery slope arguments only apply to the things that they want them to apply to, namely politics.
He's like, I want to do a slippery slope. It's kind of fucked up.